Okay, on my last video we done where we connected these triangles and then sewed them together, and then connected these triangles and sewed them together, and then we connected to this. Now we're going to connect these triangles, and then we're going to sew each one of these together to make a row. So we're going to fold this over, and then we're going to sew our 1/4 inch here. Now that we got this sewed together, now we're going to take this square and we're going to sew this right here. Make sure your placement of your triangles are right. Again, I just want to repeat that several times. We're going to sew our 1/4 inch right here. And now that we've got these two sewed together, now we're going to take these and we're going to put them right sides together. We're going to sew our 1/4 inch on both of these, and then we're going to sew them together. And then when we get these two sewed together, we're going to sew them together, 1/4 inch, and then we'll sew this one with this 1/4 inch. And then when we have that done, we're going to take this, we're going to fold this, and we're going to place this, we're going to pin this. And when I pin normally at my corners and then my center. And so that way, to make sure that I get it to fit just right. But anyway, we're going to sew this 1/4 inch, and then we will take this and then we will sew this strip, and then we'll have that block done, and we'll sew that at 1/4 inch. Now that we got this sewed together, now we're going to take this and we're going to put this up this. We're going to sew our 1/4 inch, and then we'll be done with this part of the block. And now we're finished with this section of the block. And so the next part we're going to do is we're going to do this section of the block. And then we'll have the block finished after that. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take these triangles after we've laid out our pattern, how it's supposed to go. You want to make sure that your triangles are laying in the right spot. We're going to take and we're going to sew these together 1/4 inch, each one of these, and then we're going to sew a row together. Okay, now that we've got this row sewed together, I'm going to go ahead and sew all these triangles, these two triangles together, these two, and then these two. And so now we're going to take these two triangles, which are now squares, and we're going to sew them together 1/4 inch. And then once we get those sewed together, we're going to lap them over, and then we're going to lay them here and sew them to this square. Okay, now that we got this and this sewed together, we're going to take this. Before we do this down here, I'm going to take this and I'm just going to fold it over. I'm going to line up my seams, and then I'm going to sew my 1/4 inch. Okay, next we're going to take these two squares and we're going to sew them together, and then we're going to take this square and we're going to sew together, which will make our row, and then we will sew it to this block. Now that I got this row sewed together, now I'm going to take this and I'm going to sew this to this square, and then we'll come back after we get that done. I will take this and I will sew this over to this square, and then we'll have that portion of the block done. Okay, when you get that step done, then we're going to take this block and we're going to lay it over this, and then we're going to sew our 1/4 inch. We're going to line up our seams, and then we'll have this half of the block done, this half of the block's done. So then all we have to do is connect the two together. Now we're going to take these two and put together. We're going to line up our seams, sew our 1/4 inch, and then we will have the block done. And then there's the finished look of the Star Cluster block for our Chaos Quilt. So this is block number 1. In the comments, let me know what you liked, what you didn't like of the videos. I have a tendency to like the shorter videos. If I'm going to watch a tutorial, I would rather watch a shorter tutorial than a longer tutorial, just because I'm not going to sit and watch an hour video. So let me know what you liked about this. Here's the graft of what it looked like when we drew it, and then this is the finished block. This is the last video I'll do on this. Like I said, let me know. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe, leave a comment. Anyway, thanks. Bye.